Well, hello, my little beauties, and welcome to this little, shall we call it a podcast with me, David Connolly, the web developer extraordinaire. I'm having an incredibly bald hair day. My lady Wonder Wench got me this powder that you do that, and your hair goes whoo. And I realised that I ran out a few weeks ago, and I've been doing this, and it has no effect. Anyway, that's alright. Nothing wrong with being a little bit bald. How on earth are you doing, you crazy rock and rollers? It's very, very nice to be here. So, I suppose I should explain a little bit about what this is all about and why I'm here and all of that. So, basically, I've been working really hard on a couple of projects actually, and I'm not able to tell you about them, at least not yet. And because I'm so wrapped up in these other projects, and that'll probably be the case until the end of the month, I figured, well, I'll come on and, I like to keep in touch. So I thought I'll come on and do a couple of little podcasts or whatever and share a few thoughts to do with AI and web development and stuff like that, and see if anybody finds it to be interesting. So that's really why I'm here. If I had my way, I would be doing tutorials. I think I'm better at that. And it's, I never wanted this to be one of those, how can I put this, soap opera channels. I don't want to be the guy who just kind of goes blah, blah, blah. But in any event, it's a sort of special time for me, and I just don't have time to prepare tutorials right now. So this is what you get. I'm looking here. I actually made some notes for some things that I want to discuss. And I've got a whole lot of things that I want to talk about, actually, and I hope you find some of this to be interesting. By the way, on a slightly personal note, I'm not sure if you folks knew this. I suppose the regulars knew. I've had sleep issues for a really, really long time. It's so bad. I once got one of those Fitbit things, and I uploaded my results to the web. This was a few years ago, and nobody believed me, because the results were that I was averaging at 3 hours sleep per night. And it's not like that all the time, but usually I'm somewhere between 3 hours and, if I'm really lucky, 5.5 hours. It's just the way it goes, and it's, like I say, it's been that way for a long, long time. Now, I have tried everything to solve this problem, because it's not like I'm loving the idea of not getting sleep. Do you know that the neurologists and the people who know about this stuff, they say that a good night's sleep can improve your cognitive abilities by up to 20%. So I want that. Anyway, I tried everything to try and get sleep. I tried this garbage here, which had the exact opposite effect. It made it so that you were awake during the night, but the next day when you woke up, you were really sleepy. I tried walking insane amounts, tried running, I tried everything, nothing worked. But last night, and you haven't heard me say this for a long time, but last night, I slept for over 8 hours. Well over. In fact, I think I turned in, let me get this right, I don't want to embarrass myself. I turned in around about 2 a.m. So normally I'd be expecting to get up at about 5, half 5. But can you believe it? I slept all the way to way past 10 a.m. I mean, that's pretty much sleeping in, and it's incredible. For me, this is a huge breakthrough, and it's very strange to actually get a full night's sleep. So what on earth happened? Because this is good, When you don't have a lot of sleep, you're walking about with kind of glazed eyes. And that's not good. So what was the thing that was different? Let me tell you. It was this. Like many of you folks, I've been going to bed with a mobile phone by my side. Now, I haven't read anything up on this. I'm sure there's conspiracy theories and all that. I don't know anything about the science, the history, and I don't even know if anyone else has made the observation. All I can tell you is the very last thing I did last night before I turned in is I said, I'm going to switch my phone off. I never do that. I wonder, did switching the phone off somehow result in me having a full night's sleep? I really don't know. What do you reckon? Anyway, I thought I would just let you in on that because to me it's kind of a big deal, okay? Now, what are we talking about? Let me have a little look at my show notes here. Okay, so let me just see here. Oh yeah, I can't read my I cannot read my own notes. Can you read your notes? All right, see if you can read my notes. No chance. Yeah, that says, in case you're wondering, barrier to entry. So it was really just to expand on a couple of the things that I said last week. So last week, how you doing, Jim? Nice to see you. Welcome, welcome. Always positive, never a negative word from Jim. How you doing, my friend? Welcome. So last week, I was talking about the AI gold rush and how, after careful consideration, I've reached the conclusion that the whole thing has been completely overhyped. I don't think it's going to destroy web development or anything. And quite frankly, I think that there's a whole lot of get-rich-quick nonsense that is now flooding the web development space. And so it was about time that an alternative voice appeared. Now, I did my video last week. I thought it was pretty reasonable. I don't think I said anything too shocking. I can tell you the following. I got a few subscribers, which was interesting. Kind of interesting, right? But the other thing that was interesting, I think it was up either in the high 90s or I'll call it the high 90s on the thumbs ups. So people generally agreed. But here's the funny thing. When I was logging in, I looked at the comments and I had these little snidey comments coming in. Like, I mean, I was just saying hide user from channel, so I don't have them when they came in. But I can tell you from memory that they were saying things like, the last thing I want, some awkward Scottish guy talking to me. Another one had said other things. They were just little sort of personal digs, you know? And because my self-esteem is so low, I was like, okay, hide from channel, gone, clear the comments. And then something occurred to me. I don't really get that much hate these days. Not anymore. You know, and I don't think I had said anything that should have upset anyone. At least not enough for them to leave a little, hey, look at you, one of them comments, you know. I don't think I deserved one of those. And I thought, why is it people are getting so upset at this? And then I realised it. It suddenly occurred to me that some of you jokers out there think that you're going to get rich because of this AI gold rush. Some of you out there are still logging on every day to see what the latest AI breakthrough is. You're seeing videos of people saying, oh, I made a gazillion pounds with this thing, and so can you. And some of you have put all your chips into that and you're thinking this is the thing that's going to make you rich. And I think the reason why I was getting a few little snidey comments is entirely because people were distressed, because from their perspective, I was basically just ruining their whole dream, you know? Maybe I should say raining on their parade. And I thought, okay, well, that's interesting. So what we're going to do, we're going to double down, at least for a minute. So in the last video, I won't give you the full thing. It's still up there. I'm not going to repeat myself. But I was talking about these AI agents that everybody's going crazy about. And by the way, don't be surprised if you see me demoing one soon. I'm working on something. You may or may not see that. But if I do happen to launch this and show you guys it, I'm not going to be coming on and saying I made £1 million in 5 minutes with this. I'm trying to temper people's expectations and hopefully prevent people from being disappointed, or worse still, wasting a whole bunch of time, and I certainly know about that. Now, in the last video, I was talking about high value data, low value data, and I touched upon a couple of the demos that I'd seen. These were people on YouTube who had published these videos saying, oh, I made a gazillion with this model. You can do it. Look how easy this is. And this one goes and fetches emails and it sends them and it responds and writes letters and blah, 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 blah. All very impressive. But in the last video, I was making the point that the trouble with those demos is that they're all dealing in low value data. So the example that I gave was the guy who said, I'm going to show you how to compile a report about the health benefits of beekeeping, right? It's on YouTube. And I was making the point that that's, not only is that low value data, that's zero value data. I don't think there is anyone on the planet Earth who's going to pay you for an article about the health benefits of beekeeping. Please do prove me wrong. And I was making the point that the stumbling block for a lot of these AI agents, and I should know because I've made one, is it's very difficult to get them extracting high value data or data. Funny how I haven't decided what to call it after all these years, right? And I gave the example of high value data being car insurance quotations or home insurance quotations, something like that. I could have also given an example of day trading software. I've worked with a guy who does a lot of day trading. I worked with Kenny, well, I shouldn't say his real name. I worked from the guy from Hit the Bid, and I'm familiar with the types of systems that guys like him would use. So he's looking at things like volume weighted average price, all these technical indicators. They've all got fancy names like MACDs and Bollinger Bands and stuff like that. So they're looking at all of that information live, plus the order book, and they're trading often quite a lot of revenue based on those numbers. And I'm not seeing any AI agents out there that are able to get that type of high value data. And by the way, I should have said, I got car insurance about a month or so ago. Maybe less than that, actually about 3 weeks ago. I can't remember the site. I think it was Confused. And this is how the process worked. I had to enter an email address and confirm it. I had to do all of the prove you're human stuff. I had to put in my postcode, my address, date of birth, everything. And then, get this, right at the end of the process when it says, here's your quote, do you know what it did? It says, we have sent your quote to your email address. And I thought, geez though. So I then went to my email address and there was a button that says click here to view your quotes. I clicked on the button, big random string in the URL, and finally I could view the insurance quotations. Now, I don't care if you are the best data scraper in the universe. What, and I think it was confused.com, it might have been another one, there are several, but what the car insurance companies are doing is checkmate for all of you AI agent characters. You see, there's a sort of data warfare thing going on. By now, I'm sure you know, we're a reasonably intelligent bunch. You know that data has value, right? So these AI models like Grok, ChatGPT, Gemini, and all of the others, they are harvesting data from the web. And that's all very well if you're picking up somebody's article about beekeeping or something. But when it comes to things like car insurance quotation, stock market data, and all of that high value stuff, even, by the way, some of the jobs websites, I've noticed that they're really bending over backwards to protect their data. Well, that is their data, and they're not going to give it away. The data is their product. And if you're looking at this and thinking, well, who's going to win? Is it going to be the pretty big insurance companies? I mean, I'm sure some of them are worth a few billion. Or is it going to be the massively big tech companies? Well, I think it's going to be the guardians of the data. I think it's going to be the insurance companies and people like that. They own the data, they own the platform. And as I said in the last video, it's child's play for them to protect their data. And I think that that's what's going to happen. Today, I can do a pretty good job of scraping data from the web. I'm sure you can too. But I'll be interested to see how this all plays out in the future. So anyway, everything's pretty much a summary of last week so far. But this is where I was going. And I was also making the point that the demos that I've looked at so far, you can build all of that stuff with normal web development techniques. Forgive me, but I'm slightly underwhelmed. However, one of the things that I think is worth really labouring here is the barrier to entry. And this is where I think the real this is the thing that differentiates the intelligent people from the morons, right? Quick little example. We have a private members area on this channel, and I'm lucky enough to have a few people who joined. Now, today, I was planning on coming on and showing them a system that used AI to generate revenue. And it was a little bit of fun, and we were going to do it in the private members area. Perhaps I can show you what the system was. All right, so it was a little bit of fun, and it was never to be taken seriously. But I did a test and went on, I did some deep searches, and I was using Grok. I said, of all of these sports, which is the most easy to predict? And I uploaded about 29 sports. And it turns out that there were 3 sports that are pretty easy to predict, where the favourite usually wins. One of them is basketball. The third place one, I think it might have been American football. But the most easy to predict sport, it turns out, according to the AI, is tennis. It's the game of tennis. And I kind of thought, oh, well, that's interesting. So I did a little bit more research. I looked at the upcoming games and so on. And of course, if you're looking at a tournament, let's say it's the first round of Wimbledon, that's where you're going to have red hot favourites going against complete no-hopers. And I thought, okay, well, there's something that we can predict with a high degree of certainty. But of course, the trouble is, if you bet £10, you're lucky if you get back 50 pence. The odds are rubbish, right? So I started interacting with the AI and seeing if there'd be a way of coming up with a system for predicting match results on the game of tennis. And eventually, after about an hour, I came up with a system. And the system was pretty simple. I've already given you most of it. You would feed in the tennis matches coming up, and you would say to the AI which of these matches are the most easy to predict. And of course, the AI would say it would be such and such, such and such, such and such. I'd get it to give me the 3 top predictions. And then I would say, okay, now here are some odds that have been provided by the bookmakers. Can you, based on the assessments you've done, can you tell me if there are any of these matches that have been poorly judged in terms of the odds, you know? So in other words, we want a match where somebody is a red hot favourite playing a complete no-hoper, but the odds aren't as ridiculously in the red hot favourite side as you would think. That's what we're looking for. So again, I did a little bit of research and it says, here you go. And it was a little bit of an adjustment. And then, and this was the cool part, then I discovered there's a special type of bet you can do. It's not very clever, but it sounds clever. It's called an accumulator. And so the idea is that you, let's say you bet on a chain of games, and you would say, okay, we'll take the winnings from this bet and then automatically put it on the next and automatically put it on the next. The effects of this accumulator thing are quite dramatic. In fact, I did a simulation for Wimbledon. Wimbledon's coming up. And I asked the AI to do estimates as to what type of odds are expected historically, the types of results, etc., etc. And I asked the AI, if you bet £10 on the following bet, on all of the first round games of Wimbledon being won by the favourite, and if you made that an accumulator, what would you get? And it turns out, according to the AI, you would get £1.7 million. This is from a tenner bet, you know. Now, by the way, the AI said, of course, the real chances are 0 because you're talking about 64 tennis matches and the chances of the favourite winning every time. It's never happened. It's not going to happen. But I offer the example just to demonstrate the power of compound interest. I think that's what it is anyway. So anyway, I spent maybe an hour looking at this. I was kind of curious. I found a couple of shekels in my little money box in the corner there. Headed to the bookies. I've never even placed a bookies in my life. Never in my life. And I said, here's my, it was just 20 quid lying about, here it is. And I'm going to do this bet, that bet, that bet. They must have thought I was a nutcase. I've probably still got the picture on my phone. Maybe I can show you. I got the predictions in JSON format, you know. And where on earth is it? Yeah, just for fun, I'll just show you. Yeah, here we go. So I headed in to the thing. There was my tennis bets. Now you can freeze the screen if you want. That was that. And by the way, I chucked on 3 basketball bets as well as part of the thing. And it became very clear how this was going to pan out. It turns out that basketball is not so good at predicting. I did a bit further research. The game of basketball, don't bet on it. It's a mugs game. But tennis, every time down the line, it was winning. Now, I'm sure that there are times when it wouldn't win. But if you take on board the accumulator effect, if you bet in bunches of, let's say, 3, that's reasonable, right? Well, there's a pretty good chance this is a good system. Anyway, guess what? I'm not doing it. I never did my little video for the private members area. Nor shall I. In fact, I'll never even mention that again. Why? I mean, didn't I make it sound kind of good? Didn't I make it sound kind of like, you know, as if I'd figured something out? Well, I'm very glad that I managed to impress you But here's the point. There is no barrier of entry with the system that I've just given you. In fact, it's so ridiculously simple that if you described it to somebody who knew what they were doing, they'd just laugh and call you an idiot. And I think that this is the area where a lot of people have problems when it comes to this type of thing. There are a whole lot of suckers out there who are thinking that they can march into this AI game with no barrier to entry. And by the way, watching a couple of YouTube videos late at night doesn't count. I mean, go wake up at 5 in the morning and work for, let's say, 15 to 20 hours and keep it going for a year. Then we'll talk. That's a barrier to entry, right? But we don't have that anymore. And I don't want to start complaining or anything like that. But I do feel as if we're in a sort of entitled, or living amongst a kind of entitled generation or something like that, you know? That's why people are being offended and irritated when I call out the get rich quick crowd who are suddenly everywhere, suddenly plaguing the whole IT game. Interestingly enough, I'm not saying don't use IT. I use it every day. And I'm not in any way declaring myself to be a guy who can predict the future or anything like that. But funnily enough, there's a YouTube channel that I've watched one or two things, and for whatever reason, I never really, well, it's a YouTube channel, but there's a YouTube channel I'm sure you've heard of called the Primogen, you know? And he did a little short that appeared on my feed, and he said, people are saying that this AI is going to take all of the web development jobs and all of the programming jobs. It's not. And I thought, that's absolutely right. I agree with him, you know? Didn't think I would. But I think that he has called it right. And as a matter of fact, not only is AI not going to take all of the programming jobs, let's just call it programming, not only is it not, I believe that it's going to create more programming jobs. Oh, hallelujah. Oh, hallelujah. Now, to tell you why that's the case, well, I don't want to turn this into a complete waffle fest, but let me diverge for a moment and talk about the moon swatch. Has anybody heard of the Omega moon swatch by any chance? Michael Levitt's here. Ahoy to you. It's ahoy to you, Michael Levitt. He says the people getting rich from AI are shovel sellers. And I think he's absolutely right. Ahoy to you, and hail to Michael Levitt, hail to Jim, and hail to Stefan Hummel in full formation. How you doing, my friend? Anyway, have you heard of the Omega? Are we calling it Omega or Omega? I'll go with Omega. Have you heard of the Omega moon swatch? And I'm going to see if I can get a picture of this. I know it sounds like I'm going off on one, but stick with me because this will all make sense in just a little minute, okay? So let me look up the moon swatch. Here it is here. Here it is here. All right, I'll show you the screen, right? Can you hear me? Okay. So this is the moon swatch. And it's a very attractive looking watch, I have to tell you. And it came out in 2022. So it's pretty new. And it looks very similar to an Omega Speedmaster or Omega Speedmaster. Now, the moon swatch costs about £200, okay? So maybe about $250. There it is there. Can you see that okay? I'd be grateful if you could let me know if you could see that, folks. Anyway, it costs about $250. In fact, you can see the prices up here. whether we go 195 here, shopping, here we go, it's 293, 195, etc. Now, do you see this one? Look at this. Look carefully here. I'll zoom you in a little bit. Okay. So, now hold on a minute. All right, I'll hope you can see that. Anyway, if you look at these two here, this is an Omega Speedmaster, which is the flagship Omega watch. Here you can see the price, 5,300. You can pay a lot more than that, actually. This is considered by many, I'm sure there's a few watch enthusiasts would say it's low level, but for the average person, this is a luxury watch here. I mean, you know, anything over 500's luxury for me, but here we are, right? This is the flagship watch. Now, when you look at the moon swatches, do you see how the designs are remarkably similar? Well, there's the Speedmaster 6600, that one. But look at how the moon swatch, and here's one here, very similar in terms of the dimensions, the layout, and everything like that. Now, isn't that a beaut, by the way? Yeah, there's my favourite. Don't I know how to pick 'em? Don't I know how to pick 'em? Anyway, that came out 2022. And when it came out, there were tons of people saying that this is going to be the end for Omega. They were saying they're going to dilute the brand. They've just killed the golden goose. There they were, happily selling these watches at 5,000, 6,000, even more, doing very well in the luxury watch space. And suddenly, now they've done a collab with Swatch, actually, but that doesn't matter. It's all part of the same umbrella company. Suddenly they released this watch that you can get for a couple of $100, and everybody's saying this is going to be a disaster. It's going to be the end. Now, I did a little bit of research just before I came on to show you how this turned out, and I hope you can hear me. I asked how the moon swatch affected the Omega brand, particularly the Speedmaster, which is the flagship watch. And here's what we've got. I'll just skim through this. Research suggests that it likely boosted the brand. Sales of the Speedmaster, remember that's the one that's over 5,000, right? That's the good one. Increased by over 50% after the Moon Swatch launch, with significant rises in searches and sales on platforms like eBay and Chrono24. Chrono24 is a watch website. Now, some controversy exists about brand dilution, but evidence leans towards a positive impact. The release of the Moon Swatch appears to have positively affected sales, blah, 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 blah. Our detailed analysis, let's see, it focuses on sales figures. It was a collaboration. It's just telling us about it here. Increased, okay. I'm trying to see. Right, here we are. So we had a 50% increase in Speedmaster sales globally. And again, the Speedmaster, it means the luxury one. In terms of brand exposure, it introduced the Speedmaster to a wider audience. In terms of consumer reaction, high demand, suddenly seen as fun and accessible, and the sustained interest with new models. Market dynamics boosted pre-owned Speedmaster sales, no devaluation of core models. And based on all of the available data, the Moon Swatch did not damage Omega as a brand. Instead, it significantly boosted sales of the Omega Speedmaster, with a more than 50% increase globally. And by the way, it wasn't a loaded question. I was asking it, can you show me how it damaged the thing? I was trying to get, my original question was, anyway, I'm not going to embarrass myself with the typos, but it's all there. So, What's that got to do with us? Well, it turns out that the Moonswatch was arguably the greatest marketing stunt, if that's what we'll call it, in the history of horology. There were queues of people waiting to buy this thing. As far as I can tell, it's still not the easiest thing in the world to buy, but I might be wrong about that. But this was a roaring success story, and it was good for Omega. And the main reason is because it injected new blood into the marketplace. Sounds a bit crude, but it brought in a whole new audience. And that, my friend, is exactly what's happening with AI. The more I go into this AI stuff, and I'm using it every day, the more I look at it, the more I'm realizing that it's really not that good at coding. And the more I realize it's not that good at coding, the more I'm realizing that you really need some good, traditional, old school web development skills. They're in demand. Otherwise, how are you going to build or maintain things? How are you going to even know if something is secure or if something's done right, you know? And my prediction is that the many millions of people who are sitting tonight vibe coding, as they call it, they're all going to come to the same conclusions as me eventually. And they're going to realize that what they're doing is very, very limited. And they'll be saying, man, if only I had a little bit more skills. And so it's going to draw more people into the industry. I'm actually an optimist on this front. So that's kind of good news, right? Now, I would also say that, let me read my notes again here. There's a couple of other things I wanted to say. Yeah. I wanted to say a little bit about the stuff that I would be learning. Either if I was brand new to web development or somebody who has been a developer for a few years and is maybe looking at this hurricane going through the industry and wondering what to learn. So I would say the following. First of all, unfortunately, PHP is not doing very well. And I'm a PHP guy. But I had a quick look at Indeed today before coming on. And I went through some job searches for the local area. I'm in Glasgow. It's a pretty big place. There's 1 million people in this city. I did a 25-mile radius search. And I searched for PHP developer jobs, Java developer jobs, C# developer jobs, and I did a few more. Python was another one. With all of those other technologies, consistently, Indeed was producing between 50 and 100 job results. This was for the Glasgow area. I think Python and Java were the highest, but C# was pretty good as well. So between 50 and 100 for those particular technologies, and that was today. PHP, unfortunately, and I wonder if I can do the search right now. You'd think that PHP would have been right up there. I'm going to just search for this right now. I know that you cannot see my computer. But PHP, and I'll show you it. I'm going to show you. Can you believe it, folks? PHP, 5 jobs, and they are pretty rotten, actually. The first one's a Linux support consultant, and I don't even know what that has to do with PHP, quite frankly. The next, something about teaching. So it's not really a web development gig. The next, okay, that looks like a little bit of web development action. But then again, maybe not. Maybe not. Another teaching gig. And then something to do with a dentist. Maybe that's a development gig. But pretty miserable. Pretty miserable, right? So when you compare that same area, and I'll show you the screen, of course, I'll show you the screen. So here, for example, here we have Java, and that's over 50 jobs there. So 10 times more Java jobs. What on earth went wrong? What on earth went wrong? Here comes Python. I just tried that one just to show you. Python's coming in at 75 plus jobs. So PHP is really on its ass. And that is a shame. All I can tell you is I tried my best. Didn't I tell you that all of this rewrite culture stuff would be a bad idea? Didn't I tell you that businesses would hate using stuff that was frequently rewritten for no real benefit whatsoever? Did I not warn all of you that the marketplace would favour stability over bureaucracy? Oh, how I tried. But for whatever reason, the PHP community decided they were going to double down with their third-party interversion dependency hell, with their self-appointed governing bodies and their ridiculous, nonsensical cheerleading for the destruction of their own intellectual assets. For a long time, I think I was the only guy in web development calling this stuff out. And it's funny because if you contrast PHP with something like Python that we've just looked at, the difference is incredible. Python is as solid as a rock. I mean, it's on version 3. I think it's still version 3. And that's quite impressive, you know, given the fact that V1 came out, as I've often said, when Freddie Mercury was alive and well. They've managed to keep it pretty stable. And instead of focusing on bureaucracy, they focused on building cool stuff. Python is now at the center of the AI universe. It gets used for all sorts of incredible things. And what a shame that PHP never went down that road. Anyway, forgive me if I'm sounding a bit depressed there. I hope I'm not bringing anybody down. But this brings us on to the question of what would I learn if I was coming into the game right now? Well, I reckon I've got enough material here for about 6 months worth of videos, but let me just lay it on the line quite quickly. Remember how I said I had 8 hours sleep last night? This is the 8 hours sleep version of me. And when I got up, a word popped into my head, and the word is polyglot. That's what I would be doing. I would be becoming a polyglot programmer? Is that what they call it? I would be learning multiple languages. That's what I would be doing. And I think that in this marketplace, if you can do that, you're going to be doing really well. Now, I haven't done it. I know a couple of little languages, but I don't know tons for sure. I've tried a lot. Definitely haven't mastered a lot. But I was thinking about it this morning, and I do believe it would be possible to become proficient, let's say to an acceptable level, in 3 languages in 30 days. That's right. I think you can learn 3 languages in 30 days. You're not going to be, the top programmer in the universe or anything with them. but I think you'll certainly have enough to get by. And with a little bit of AI assistance, I think you'll be able to be very productive and you'll be able to build cool stuff. The way, and I'm hoping I can do it if I can get some time. But the way that I would learn 3 languages in 30 days is I would have 3 blocks of 90 minutes each. You ever notice that movies last for 90 minutes generally? I think it's a magical number, you know? And I think that, well, I think most of us anyway can hold our attention on some subject or another for 90 minutes. So if you're going to be doing the learn 3 languages in 30 days challenge, I'll give you my languages and I'll give you my schedule. The 3 languages that I would learn would be Python. By the way, I assume that you know JavaScript. If you don't, learn JavaScript, right? A lot of us know JavaScript. So it would be Python, it would be Java, and it would be C#. Those would be the 3. If you are really not into those, I would consider Golang and C++. I don't think there's anything wrong with learning Swift as well. I don't think there's anyone who has learned Swift who regrets the decision. But for me, personally speaking, it would be Python, it would be Java, and it would be C#. These are the 3, by my estimation, that will, let's say, allow you to bring the most to the marketplace. And why do I choose those 3? Very quickly, if you're talking about AI stuff, you're probably going to be looking at things like TensorFlow and various other libraries that allow you to create your own models. When it comes to that stuff, Python is all over the place. So I would definitely learn Python. I think it's good for AI. Interestingly, I did a question with ChatGPT a while ago and I said, of all of these programming languages, which one are you the best at? And it said Python. So there seems to be a lot of resources about Python. You can build anything with it, just about, and it seems to be experiencing a lot of positive growth. I would learn Python. The second one I chose was Java. Well, Java and C# are really close contenders. Very, very close contenders indeed. One of the reasons why Java just gets it for me, I wouldn't argue with anyone who said C#, by the way, but as silly as it sounds, you know that Doge team that Elon Musk put together, who are exposing all of the fraud and corruption and all that in America, right? Well, they have been tasked with modernizing the way that the government runs. For example, the pension systems and all of that type of stuff. And that team, Elon's team, are recommending a switch from COBOL to Java. They chose Java. Interesting, right? Now, you could leave it at that, and if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. I can tell you that I did a sort of deep dive in the members area. I think it was about a week ago, and we looked at why did they choose Java? Why did they not choose Golang or C++? Why did they not choose C#? And we looked at all of the options, and after some very careful consideration, the majority agreed that they actually made the right choice. Java is a great choice. And one of the areas where Java's strong is stability. If you're building a massive system for, let's say, a government or something like that, you want it to be working decades into the future. And there's really only a few languages that can do that. And by the way, that rules out things like Rust, unfortunately, because it's fairly new. No fault of Rust. But Java has that stability. It has the track record, and it has that thing going on where you can use it on any platform and build all sorts of stuff. So Java, Python, and C#. For C#, I would say all of the stuff with Python is pretty much applicable to C#. I'm not a C# expert. I'm not a Java or a Python expert, but I have looked at some tutorials. In my own personal opinion, it's just an opinion, but from the little I've seen, C# has got better syntax. I just find it a little bit better to look at, just personally speaking. But as far as I can tell, C# has got some really cool frameworks that you can now take advantage of. There's one, I don't want to pronounce it, I'll get it wrong. Is it MAW or MAW? It's a brand new. Help me out, folks. But there's a whole bunch of stuff with C#. They've now got it pretty much that if you learn C#, you can build for all kinds of platforms. So C# would definitely be a goer for me if I was going to be learning stuff. Now, I think that was pretty much that. I'm actually kind of optimistic, strangely enough. I saw a video came on my feed yesterday. I'll look on YouTube, see if I can show you it. AI is going to take all the jobs. I won't even bring it on. I just don't see it that way. I go with the moon swatch model. I think there's a ton of people now becoming interested in web development and programming who otherwise could not have cared less about it. I think we're going to see the same thing happening with web development that happened with the moon swatch. Remember, I gave you my little example, and I think that you're going to see a surge in the demand for web developers and programmers. I am an optimist, and I hope that you'll be optimistic too. The other thing I'll say just before I go, I think I've got a good video in me for advice for developers who are over the age of 40. If you're lucky enough to be in that category, well, your situation's a little bit different. And I actually think that you've got massive opportunities right now. Remember, I was talking about the polyglot thing and learning lots of languages. You don't have to necessarily be great at them, right? But if you roughly know how do they declare a variable, how do they do functions, how do they do classes, how do they load stuff, right? The basics. You could all figure that out. Well, for those of us who are over the age of 40, I think that there's a lot of opportunities and consultation coming up. In fact, even as we looked at the job adverts there, you could see those coming up, you know. I think 2 or 3 of them were talking about training. So if I was a web developer over the age of 40, I would seriously be thinking about things like consultation and training and stuff like that. For anyone else, take your pick and enjoy the ride, but just don't think that you're going to buy something, subscribe to the latest new thing and become rich because of some AI thing. That is ridiculous, and it has been a pleasure and a privilege to call that stuff out. All right, that's me. I think I'm just about done. I wanted to come on and waffle for an hour. And thank you for being here. I got a few likes and everything, you know. So thanks very much. Did I say, oh, Michael Levitt here, Jim. Thank you, folks. I appreciate you more than you know. I'm going to hit the road. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you very soon, okay? Cheers.